Hi, everybody. It's MJ Kinman, and welcome back to Holiday Jewel Box class. It's week 7 or lesson number 9. And this week we're going to be talking about March's birthstone, the aquamarine. Now, aquamarine's name comes from the Latin for seawater and was said to calm the waves and keep sailors safe at sea. Aquamarine is a beryl and is found in all shades of blue, from greenish blue to a deeper blue. The color is due to the presence of iron, and that means it's an allochromatic gemstone. Okay, so what do I mean by allochromatic? Well, natural gems can be created by one of 3 different types of events. The first is when the color is a function of the inherent makeup of the crystal. That means it never changes. It is what it is. These types are known as idiochromatic gemstones. They only come in one color. So, for example, malachite is always green. And you can see this example of this lovely malachite stone right here. The second way gems can get their color are through optical properties of the gem and its reflection from or just under the surface, as in chatoyancy or asterism, which means either the single rayed cat's eye gems or the multi-rayed star gems. And the third way that gemstones can get their color and their appearance is through the presence of impurities such as iron. So, for example, when you find iron in beryl, it becomes an aquamarine. If you find vanadium in beryl, that is known as an emerald. And also, if you find manganese in beryl, that's called morganite. And morganite is a really beautiful light pink to a kind of a coral to a lavender gemstone that is really stunning. And so these are known as allochromatic gemstones. They get their color from impurities in the gemstone itself. Now, aquamarine gemstones have been loved and adored for centuries, but they became really popular in the 1920s when it became a really popular gem to put in Art Deco jewelry. And you can see here some examples of lovely brooches and clips and rings that have an Art Deco vibe to them. The Cartier brothers, especially Jacques, who ran the London house of Cartier, loved to combine aquamarines, diamonds, and platinum in their signature Art Deco 1920s designs. Another reason the Cartier started using gemstones rather than diamonds was to expand the market by creating more affordable jewelry following the worldwide economic depression of the 20s and the 30s. And again, here's an example of some more beautiful Art Deco brooches. People loved clips back then. Because of its clarity and association with the sea, aquamarine has long been associated with relaxation and with being soothing and protective. The stone is thought to keep us connected to the water, obviously the origin of all life on the planet. It's also associated with courage, faithfulness, and friendship. An aquamarine has been said to protect from the negative influences of gossip and increase one's wisdom and happiness. Oh my goodness, do I need that for all of the reasons above. So look at this gorgeous aquamarine. This is the most famous and the largest cut aquamarine in the world, and it's called the Dom Pedro. This aquamarine is 10,363 carats, and it's part of the National Gem Collection at the Smithsonian, the Smithsonian's National Museum of Natural History. It was cut from a gigantic crystal that weighed over 100 pounds. It was mined in Brazil. The gemstone now is an obelisk that's 14 inches tall and 4 inches wide at the base, and it was cut by master gem cutter Bernd Moonsteiner. So here's the gemstone that inspired my aquamarine birthstone block design. I loved this little Asher cut. Now, the Asher cut was introduced in the early 1900s by the Asher brothers of Holland's Asher Diamond Company, which is now known as the Royal Asher Diamond Company. The cut gained popularity again, like the aquamarines in the 1920s, because the design worked really well with the angular lines of Art Deco jewelry. The cut features large step facets and a high crown. It really rises up over that the girdle facet. And that produces a lot of brilliance. It's been described as the diamond with the endless hallway of reflective mirrors. I really love that. One of the features of this cut is that it offers an unobstructed view into the center of the stone, which makes inclusions very, very obvious. So if you have a gemstone that has a really high clarity grade, then that would be a good candidate for the Asher cut. This particular cut shows off gemstones that are beautifully clear and are free of inclusions or inclusions that can be seen at least with the naked eye. And so here's my little aquamarine. And you can see I have taken a few liberties with her just to make her a little bit more symmetrical. And she's just 8 pie wedges that ring around the block. And I hope you enjoy making her. Let's get to it. First thing you're going to do is take a look and to make sure that you're cutting up the freezer paper. You're going to look for the little shiny bit on the back, and it's going to feel plasticky. You're going to take your regular paper then chart, and you're going to put that up on your design wall or close to your workspace so that you have a little cheat sheet. You'll need 11 business size envelopes, and those will correspond with the 11 fabrics that you'll be cutting out. These fabrics range from white to a light blue, all the way to a gray tone, and then back to a darker tone. So you do have the teals and you've got the grays, but it's a nice range of value that's going to make your aquamarine sparkle. So also let's take a look at the special challenges. The special challenges here as multiple seams converging in the center. Right? You've got all of these section lines coming together. Now, there are ways that you can handle that traffic jam. It's to trim the seam allowances at an angle to reduce bulk, or you can press the seams in the same direction as you piece them all together. Now, what we normally do is we take our highlighter, right, and we highlight the inside edge all the way around the block. That's to give us a visual clue to put those on the straight of grain so that those edges don't get warped. Now, we have 8 sections in our aquamarine, and that means we have 4 lines converging at the center. You can either highlight all 4 of these lines to make sure that you give yourself a good visual clue to put them on the straight of grain, or you can simply highlight those 2 that come together perpendicular in the very center of the gemstone. Do you see those lines that are a little extra bolded? You can simply highlight those because here's the reason. These sections of the aquamarine, they're made up of relatively small pieces. And if you leave the freezer paper on those small little pieces and sew those sections together, that's going to be enough structure to keep those section edges stable and not twist out of shape. The facets I'm most concerned about are these triangular facets in the very center. If you put one of those edges on the straight of grain, the other will necessarily be on the bias. So it's important to get at least one of those edges on the straight of grain. And you know what? To do that, all you need to do is highlight those 2 center section lines that crisscross each other in the very center. If you highlight the edges of those 2 lines, each section will have at least one edge of their triangle highlighted. Or just to keep it simple, you can highlight all 4 lines, which divide up your 8 sections. It's up to you. I think in this particular example, I'm going to go ahead and highlight all 4 lines so that every single line between my sections is highlighted. Now it's time to go ahead and cut apart our sections. I'm going to start by removing the very edges as I typically do. Again, you don't have to. That's going to give you a little extra wiggle room if you want to trim up your block later to exactly 17.5 inches. And now I'm going to go ahead and carve up my 8 sections. Once those are cut apart, I'm going to find the through lines and begin cutting up each individual section. Since these are such small little pieces, be real careful that none of them wander away. Keep those ceiling fans off, keep the little animals off the table, and get those into your envelopes just as soon as you can. Once I have my sections cut up, I'm going to sort them by color code. For my aquamarine, I decided that I wanted to create a mystic topaz. Now, a mystic topaz is a clear quartz stone that's been coated with a proprietary coating, a coating that brings out all of these amazing colors. I think it's just gorgeous, very magical, very joyful. And so I decided to use some of my Northcott swirls that came out last year and emulate a mystic topaz. We'll see how it turns out. I have no plan. There's no rhyme or reason to this, but I'm just going to see how this turns out. Now, the fun thing about using these Northcott swirls is that I'm going to be fussy cutting a lot. I'm going to be placing these little facets on light, medium, and dark values within these gemstones. And so I also just want to share with you, when you fussy cut, sometimes you can't always be sure that you're getting your edges on the straight of grain. That's okay. It's not a big deal. Because these pieces are so small, I'm not going to worry about it. Remember way back when we talked about putting the long edges of your needle nose facets or really long, maybe a couple of inches, 8, 9, 10-inch long pieces on the straight of grain? That's when I really worry about getting things off the bias and onto the straight of grain. But with these small pieces of the aquamarine, I'm not going to worry about it. To pick my colors, I took a look at the color codes and looked at what their values were that were associated with those color codes. And then I selected colors from my Northcott swirls that were close to that particular value. Not precise, but close enough. So for example, with the grays that you'll see in the color chart, I chose kind of a pink and purple colorway. And then for all the teals and the light blues, I used not just only blues, but a gold and then a diamond color, kind of a gray color. We'll see how it turns out. This image gives you an idea of how I fussy cut my Northcott swirls by placing the facets depending on the flow of light and color, not necessarily because those edges needed to be on the straight of grain. For me, it was more important to get the right flow of color and value in those facets than to get them perfectly on the straight of grain. Why? Because these pieces are small, and that freezer paper is going to give it structure to keep it from twisting and warping out of shape. In this case, I wanted to really play with the swirls and position my facets so that it captured that wonderful flow of light and color across the facet. And once I have them all cut up, I'm just separating them out into the different sections. I've just cut up 4 sections here, so I just have 4 little piles. Now I'm going to sort them in numerical order, making sure that none of my little facets have wandered away, that I have every single one of them. And finally, I'm going to start putting them in my piecing order. I'm going to do my best to get this Mystic Topaz all sewn together for you by end of week, so I have something to show you. Meanwhile, have a great week and shine on.